In this video, we'll talk about query selectors. So there are two types of query selector. One is query selector and one is query selector all. So we use query selector method if you want to fetch only single element. And if you run the query selector that is matching with multiple element, it fetch only the first element that matches the CSS selector we are using. So the syntax is document.querySelector method, and you can pass the selector, and we have already seen the types of selector we usually use in the CSS video. We can use the element name, ID, and the class. Then we have the query selector all. So the query selector all method returns all the element in the document that matches a specified CSS selector. It never returns an array, it always returns static node list. That is the problem. Many people consider it as an array and will prove it's not an array. Okay, so it returns all the element that matches the selector. So let's go to our VS Code and see. So now I'm in VS Code. We'll write some HTML again, because query selector is to fetch the elements from the documents, and in our case document is an HTML file. So I'll create one file with a div only, hello everyone. So I create the div, and it immediately prints the text on the screen. Then I'll say another div, hello LWC developers. Then I create another div, hello Ohana. So these are the three divs and three lines. So I want to run the JavaScript by which I'm able to fetch this div. Okay, so we have just now talked about imports, and we'll talk about now query selector. So I want to run some code in JavaScript by which I'm able to fetch all the divs. So here we'll first use document.querySelector, and we'll pass the selector name. So selector can be an element. So in our case we'll use element only. So I'm using div element, and it will query at it will bring the element. So I'll say let element equal to document.querySelector div, and we'll console the element. Now you can see it's bring the first element, that is hello everyone, because as we saw in the slide, query selector query based on the selector and returns only the first element that matches the condition. So it start querying the DOM, it find okay it's matching the first one, it returns. But if I want to return all, I need to use element equal to element all. I'll write document dot query selector all, and I'll say bring me all divs. And now if I say console.log element all, it will brings all the div to me. So now you see it says it's a node list, it's not an array, but it looks like an array. It brings div 1, div 2, and div 3. So it start index again with a 0. Okay, so this is how we do. So what's the use of calling this element and bringing the elements to the JavaScript? On these elements you can apply the style. So you can say color red. So this is how you define the CSS in JavaScript, so that color become red. And if you want to run the loop for each element, you can say element all. First it's a node list, so always convert into an array dot from. So this will convert the node list into an array. Then we'll use the for each, we'll use a function, and in the function each element item is a div. So I'll say div dot style dot color equal to green, and should be div item. So in the loop I am updating the color. Now you can see all colors become green. And one more thing, in JavaScript runs from top to bottom. First it changed the color to red, but again at line number 10 JavaScript run and it changed the red to green. So now the whole color are green. So this is how it works. Now people says it's this query selector all returns an array, but if I remove this conversion to array and change this for each to map, it automatically returns an error. Map is not a function even though I give the return here. So if it is an array, the map, that is the array method, should work on an array. So it's not an array. So as soon as I say array dot from and I convert this node list to an array, it start working. Okay, it removes the error. So this is how query selector all. I gave you a basic example of styling. You can use many things from this particular element. You can fetch any value, any data, inner text. Like if I want to fetch element dot inner text, so inner HTML, but I can fetch inner text as well. So it fetch the inner text, hello everyone, right? So likewise inside, if there is a HTML, you can fetch the whole HTML as well. Instead of div, you can use the class as well. So if I give the class ABC, you can use dot class, you can use that as well, and it will print the element. Just remove this. Sorry, our class name is ABC, not the class. So class name is ABC, and I'll remove this. We don't need this color, but it's still printing the inner text here. See, it's still running. You can use the ID as well, but ID is not the recommend way in the LWC. The only difference comes in LWC, your this query, that is document.querySelector, will become this dot template dot query selector. So we'll replace document with this dot template in LWC. Rest, operation, functionality, everything will remain same. So this is the difference between query selector and query selector all. I'll repeat it. Query selector method returns the first element that matches a specified CSS selector in the document, and query selector all method return all the element in the document that matches a specified CSS as a static node list. So in the next video, we're gonna learn about events. So I'll see you in the next video.